I'm a bit of fish out of water here. It's not really what I...
No, no. That's one of the things though, isn't it? Because when I saw the kind of overview, one of the things was about, well, what would you say to your younger self? And I think that one of the things that I would say to my younger self is that there's no out of water, there's no out of comfort zone, that, you know, the world is ours, you know, the world belongs to us. And sometimes when we find ourselves in these spots where we think, oh, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be there. It just means that you just got to get used to it. That's all. And it happens, especially if you're from a place like Newham, or from where we are, where the world can seem a little bit small sometimes. It can seem like you're supposed to be in that particular corner or that particular lane, and it doesn't feel like the world is open, but it is. We have to find our spot and find the people that care about us enough to help us feel comfortable in that spot. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I think that's perfect, and that should be our intro.
I am the shyest person in the world.
You listen to Joy White.
I'm the shyest person in the world. I'm not naturally gregarious in any way, but, you know, taking all of that I've just said, I get up and talk in front of hundreds of people. I do these things, these online things. You know, I write words and put them out into the world, and that brings its own challenges as well. You know, when you make your work, whatever your work is, words, music, and you put it out there, it takes it to a different place. You have no control over where your words go or where your music goes or how people will respond to it. And yeah, that can be quite challenging if you're naturally shy. She said.
So this is Joy White, and nice to meet you. And that was beautiful. And just, you know, I'll continue on from that, because people have always said to me, yeah, you know, he's so shy and da-da-da, you know what I mean? And I've always kind of felt a bit that way, and I'm quite, you know, an introvert, but I've always written, you know what I mean? Like, that was my way to express myself, and just my way to just deal with things, you know what I mean? But when it came to performance, I was all, you know, on stage, I'm kind of, you know, do what I have to do. And then people are quite surprised at how quiet I am off stage. But I think for young people especially, well, for me, it was so important to have that outlet. I just wish, you know, more, I mean, I guess everyone does have that. Not everyone has the ability to, or even the interest in being a rapper or writing or whatever, but just having something that you can express yourself with and use that to, you know, get your thoughts out there. I think it's so important. Like, when did you first start writing things down?
I think I've always written things down. I've always made notes. I haven't always written things that I thought I would put out into the world, but I've always made notes. So my saving grace, if you like, was books. I always loved books. So when we were growing up, grew up in a very kind of ordinary household, not a lot of money about, those kinds of things. So, but me and my sister would go to the library and we'd get out the maximum number of books. And then that wasn't enough. So we'd go to the secondhand bookshop and then we'd buy books. And they had this kind of system where you could buy the books, read them, take them back, get a little bit of money back and put that towards your new books. So my outlet has always been words. It's always been reading. If you ever wanted to find me, you'd find me in a book. And so I think it is that thing about finding whatever your creative thing is. And for me, it was that love of words, that love of reading. And once you're in there, once you're in those covers, the way that you can be taken into different places. And then once you know those things that you know and that you've learned, it can't be taken away from you. And that's really powerful. When we live in places or we occupy spaces where a lot of things are taken from us or refused to us, then having knowledge and being able to hold on to that knowledge is really powerful, I think. And so for me, I'm a writer, I'm an academic, but I came to the kind of formal sense of writing and came to formal academia quite late in life. So I wasn't a traditional student. I left school when I was 16. My first job was in a sausage factory, all this kind of thing. And, you know, did various kind of admin jobs over the years. And then somewhere along the way, I just thought, they keep talking about A-levels. I really need to go and get some. So I went to evening classes and did some. But even then, I've had this kind of really zigzag route into higher education. 1 minute, someone's knocking at my door. Sorry.
Yeah.
I really apologise for that, Kane. I'm sorry.
No, it's all going in.
That's so yeah. I mean, I've often when people look and they see a title and they see a job and they see a person in a job, they think, oh, they did A, B, C in that order to get there. I didn't. I went a really long way round. I was very mature when I did my PhD. And, you know, even that, I, you know, was working with young people from Newham who were doing their work experience year. And no one was particularly interested in business like that, but we had, you know, fast computers. So people would come in and they'd update all their MySpace, they'd do this, they'd do that. And I think, what are they doing? What are they doing? And they were putting their music out, creating songs, making all these sounds, and everyone that came through the door was listening to the same thing, the same kind of sound. It didn't matter what their cultural background was. And because I've always been interested in learning and teaching, I trained as a teacher a long time ago, but didn't do it for very long. That's what fascinated me, and that's why I'm the most unusual grime fan you'll ever meet. That's how I ended up doing a PhD on grime. So yeah, the entrepreneurial aspects of grime and Black British contemporary music. So that was what my PhD was in. And we were talking before about being out of step and out of our zone. I was really out of my step. I was really out of step. So imagine I'm going around and I'm interviewing and talking to people that were MCs and event managers. I did some field research in Ayia Napa, followed the journey from East London to Ayia Napa.
Yeah, we went out there. I think I went out there in 2003 or something for my first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was a big part of my kind of experience as well. And becoming an MC, and it actually was, you know, Ayia Napa. When I come back from there, I started taking it more seriously. I think we went there for about 5 weeks. Played at all the raves and whatever. So yeah, that was a big part of my upbringing as an MC.
Yeah, and it's kind of in keeping with this idea that we're kind of talking about opening up the world. And I think that what grime did for a lot of young people was open up the world. So even traveling to different places out of London, beyond the areas that they lived in, and then abroad as well, it was really enlightening, and it was fascinating for me as well. So
where do you think the fear comes from with, like, you know, a lot of media kind of have always kind of spoke about Black music with this kind of negative brush, you know, where we see it as young people kind of having a voice and doing their thing, and we look at the positives and, you know, entrepreneurship and the artistic expression, but some people just can't see that. Where do you think that comes from?
I think it's ongoing. I don't think it's simply an issue with grime and now drill. It's an issue with Black creative expression generally, I think. And when I think back to growing up with reggae and sound systems and the amount of scrutiny that reggae events were subjected to, it's an ongoing issue. It's part of a pattern that doesn't have one answer to it. And so for me, when I started writing about those genres, those ideas, those young people, it was really important for me that I wrote it in a way that was respectful, that acknowledged the thought and the impact that people were making and the positive effects of taking part in a genre that at that time people were saying similar things that they say about drill now. Yeah. And trust me, as an academic, the first few times I got up to present these papers, I got this kind of, what's that? Somebody actually said to me, do you think that this is a suitable subject for academic inquiry? Oh, wow. It sounds like children's noise. And I said, well, I'm presenting it. It must be suitable. I'm an academic. I'm here. I'm presenting it. Of course it is. But over the years, that resistance to it as something that's of social, cultural and economic significance, that's kind of abated somewhat. It's kind of gone away. But you see it with other genres now, don't you? This kind of, we're a little bit unsure about this in terms of the content. And sometimes, though, we have to challenge these things a little bit. Is it just the content, or is it about the people that are making it? I have a responsibility to make sure that we press people when they make these kind of general statements to, dip into the archives, show people exactly what's there and the impact that it's had and how important it is, and why it really matters. And I think we're kind of there now. There are lots of other scholars writing about grime now in particular. And on the whole, we don't even have to make that argument anymore about why it matters. It's accepted that it matters and it's important. And I think that's a huge leap from where we started.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the book. I've read the book, Terraformed Young Black Lives in the Inner City. And obviously, I'm speaking to loads of people from Newham. So firstly, where are you from in Newham? And what was the inspiration for the book? And what story do you think it tells?
I'm from Forest Gate. I've lived in Forest Gate on and off probably for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
So for me, I can see how the area is changing, especially in the last few years. But also, I can see the general changes in other areas as well. I'm an individual, but I'm part of a community, and I see how the younger people that are in my life in some way or another, I saw how difficult life was becoming for them in a way that it was difficult for me growing up, but it was difficult in a different way.
Okay. Are you talking about the class of 91 that you describe as in the book?
Yeah, because that's the age that, go to university, do this. And if you do all of these things and you work really hard and you put your all into it, then you'll be a success, whatever success looks like. And for more and more young Black people, it's not the case. It's just not the case. And trying to explain to people why it's not an individual failing always, if that's not the case. There are structures, there are systems, there's a historical aspect to this, there's a contemporary aspect to this. And I didn't always have enough words and I didn't always have enough time. So that was the inspiration for the book, was to kind of, let me just try and fit the pieces together in the way that makes sense to me, and hope that it makes sense to the young people that I've been talking to and beyond. I've had, some of the feedback I've had from that particular age group has been warm, and it's been quite a revelation for me. And so it was a difficult book to write, because I had to revisit or start to think about growing up in Newham, which in a lot of ways has been a positive experience, but there were some not so positive aspects to being part of a minority community in a place that's been historically constructed as very white, and trying to find your place and a sense of belonging.
Was there stories that you revisited and was like really shocked at how it was so normal, and now it would be like, wow, there's something when you talk about in a place where you worked with another Black guy, and when he used to come into the office and everyone used to make monkey chants and all of those kind of things, and that was like in the workplace. Like today, that would be considered, people, when people hear that stuff, they just think, a couple bad apples, football, hooligans, but like it was kind of weaved into the workplace back then even.
This was an everyday story of life, and I'm sure that it was repeated in many ways and in other places. But to be a teenager in that time, because I was 16 or 17, and to know that there was no recourse for you. You couldn't complain, because I did complain, they moved me, but you couldn't say anything about it because it was just normal. It was just normal. And so I think for people of my generation, getting to that point where, well, actually, we're not going to have that anymore. We're just not going to have that anymore. And so you start to see this kind of social and political consciousness that emerges. Well, we're going to change things. We're going to do things different. And you see all of those organisations in Newham come about, the there was Elbow, there was the Renewal Program, all of these organizations that come out of communities that said, no, what, we don't want to live like this. We want something better, or we want something different. And to start to make those changes. So it was a difficult book to write. For me, it's probably the first time that I felt like I was writing in my own voice and in my own way. So it's an academic book, but it's written in a way that's accessible. It's got a price that's accessible. All of those things were important. The first book I wrote retailed at £100 because it's an academic text. Who's buying a book for £100? I might, but I couldn't afford it.
I just wanted to speak about, you talk about Forest Gate and how you see it changing. I think it was interesting how when you was, describing essentially gentrification and you was kind of witnessing it firsthand, what made you start documenting that stuff? Was you curious that something was being maybe taken away from us?
I think it's curiosity, and I'm a sociologist. It's what we do. We look at things, and I thought, well, you can look at things in books and draw some kind of knowledge from those. But I was reading the books and reading the story, the kind of academic literature about gentrification, and I was also looking out my window, and I was also walking along Wood Grange Road, and it's like, how do I tell this story? Because these things are changing. And I didn't want to tell a story, look, there's lots of well-off people now, because that's not it. There are policies and ideas in place about making an area better in some way. And that's fine, taken on its face. But what do you lose? Yeah, and who's it for? And what does it say about what was there already? If you're making it better, better than what? And when I was saying before about, out there in the world, grime's got all this value now, it's important and what have you. But in the areas that grime came from, the places where it was able to happen, because this is the place that it is, we need to attach value to that as well. It's important and it matters. And so I'd walk along, and it was a gradual change. Somebody asked me this, when did you notice? But I didn't notice overnight because I'm here every day. So it was bit by bit, and then you kind of look up and you think, oh, that's new. And, oh, we have artisan bread now. Ah, okay. And it was a gradual change, I think. It was a gradual change. And as I said, I'm an academic, I'm a sociologist. It was trying to pull those pieces together in a way that made sense in some way.
Yeah. And you was witnessing, from a lot of the estate agents, that kind of multiculturalism marketing, you know what I mean, where kind of people seem very, keen to live in multicultural areas and the cool that comes with it, but essentially living cheek by jowl, but not really interacting with the community that was there before. And yeah, you explain how you were seeing that, I guess, people living next to each other, but not really, communicating with each other.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because we have to, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We have to, when we come out the other side, we can't have the same world that we had before. We've got to have some sense of communities, plural, living together, not just side by side, not in this kind of parallel universe, because those divisions make social life very, very challenging and difficult. And yeah, and all the inequality and unfairness that goes with that, which I think younger people feel the most, because they look out there at what's there for them, and it doesn't seem to be a lot. And we must be able to get to a place where young people from areas like Newham look out and think, yeah, I'm going to do that, and it's possible, and there's room for me.
No, I hear that. You also mentioned in the book, like you named some people that have, died in I guess police custody, in the hands of the police or by the hands of the police, I don't know. And talked about the small amount of local protests that came after that, but it wasn't really such a thing. I wondered how, you know, post George Floyd, you feel things have changed. Is this something that English people are just realizing now is actually a thing? And have attitudes changed, and have they changed for the better? Or do you get suspicious sometimes when people want to kind of make out like they're on side, but not really?
It's interesting, isn't it, that when something happens, when there's been some kind of incident, there's usually a protest of some kind, small or large, reported or not reported. But what's interesting is that the incident with George Floyd happened, and the kind of world response to that incident, one of far too many. Yeah. But I think that what's happened with the protests in the UK is it seems to be a mixture of people protesting, doesn't it? Yeah. It seems to be a mixture of people. They seem to be young, and I think it is that idea that people have had enough. And so if the incident is about police brutality and a man losing his life on camera in front of however many people, then all these questions about, well, if that can happen on camera, what can happen behind closed doors? And then people start to make those connections between other inequalities, other unfairness. And I think that is what's driving perhaps the young people in the UK who are protesting now. I'm less sure about the corporate responses to Black Lives Matter. Turning your screen black, making a statement, it's performative at best. It doesn't change anything in terms of the structures. Are you employing black staff, maybe? Yeah. Are your hiring systems fair? Is there a working environment where people can not just survive, but flourish? All of those things. If you're not addressing any of that, then your allyship is performative. It changes nothing. And yeah, I think it was the music industry that did the blackout, the Black Screens Day. I'd be interested to see what happens after that in terms of not just the music industry, but in all of those sectors that claimed that they supported the idea of Black Lives Matter, and how that translates into real life and the real world, because that would be a real downfall, I think, if it didn't translate into action.
Well, I guess it's hard to dismantle a system that you didn't build yourself. It's going to take people in power to really, to implement change and to really believe in it. But who is willing to let go of the power that they have? We're talking about there needs to be more black people in these positions, but I guess when they're in the boardroom, it's like looking around thinking, like, which one of us is going to go? You know what I mean? System's kind of been working for me.
Having representatives, or one or two representatives, doesn't change the structures, as you say.
Tokenism, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is about, all of us, particularly the people that have the most power, changing mindsets, changing actions, changing the way they do things, looking at somebody and thinking, yeah, they've got potential, even if they don't look like you.
Yeah, man, I think this time, and I don't know if it's because of lockdown as well, seems like it has been a time of reflection. I have had loads more conversations with, people that are non-black than I probably ever have, Some people seem to be keen to learn, but you're right, it's about what are you doing and what are you implementing in your own life, you know what I mean? And I guess time will tell if it's real or not,
Yeah, and in the meantime, those who have always strive to make a better place will continue, but the heavy lifting is easier if other people get involved with yeah, the right set of beliefs and wanting to change things. So, you know, it has to be a different world after, doesn't it? Has to be.
It has to. It has to. What do you feel like could be put in place today that would help young people?
Fund the youth centres, fund those organisations that are doing the work already, give young people something to do after school. That gap between school and going home can be a tricky time, but put the resources in, because we do know what to do, and there are organisations and individuals who are out there doing it anyway, and ask them what they want and give it to them. It sounds really a bit too simple, but when the pandemic hit and everybody, so many people looked like they were going to be out of work, and people said to government, you can't let all these people not have any work, give them money. They gave them money. You know, you can't have people sleeping out in the street. We had people sleeping out in the street over the last 10 years, the numbers going up and up and up, and nothing could be done. It was too difficult, but then it could overnight.
Yeah, it's like,
so
there's the money tree that you said you didn't have.
You know, no magic money tree. Look at that. There's a magic money tree, but the money's been there all along. So I think where there's a will, there's a way. We know that young people need things to do to not just to keep them occupied, but it's what you were saying before about finding their creative skills and their creative identity, because creativity comes in many forms and in many ways, and nurturing that in our young people. They deserve it and we owe it to them. You know, creativity is conversation, it's making music, it's writing words, it's knitting, it's skipping, whatever it is, it's dance, it's all of those things and more. And what are we saying to our young people? We're saying, well, no, you can sit in front of an iPad for how many hours a day in your house, because that's what we are pushing young people into. We're pushing them into ever smaller corners where the world outside seems like a dangerous place, so can't go out there. There's nowhere safe to go, or nowhere that feels safe to go. And what does that do to your well-being? What does that do to your physical and your emotional well-being? So there are organisations out there already. There are people out there already doing the work. They know what needs doing. Give them the money.
yeah,
And support young people.
Yeah, it's like when I think about my life and growing up, and you look back, and you know, we used to go to play schemes. Then we used to go to Newham Leisure Centre. You know what I mean? I think we used to pay like £1 or something and get in there, and you can use the swimming pool. And I went back there earlier on in the year and done like a show in Newham Leisure Centre for like 500 people, like a free ticket kind of thing, just to kind of just to do that in my old area just kind of meant a lot to me. But even we used to go, like there was a teacher at my school, I went to Langdon School in East Ham, and he used to open up the sports gym in the 6 weeks holidays. And he's one of those teachers that it seemed like he hated kids. So I don't know, but clearly that was just his personality, because he used to do that for us, and we used to go there every single day, and we used to play football. And it just those people that really care in the community, I think you need to support those people. But like me in my position now, I do think like, how could I, help those people, empower those people, and how can I not just be someone that can inspire through my art? Like, how can I also directly help?
You start where you stand, don't you? And you do what you can with the tools that you've been given. And so for every person, that might be different. So your platform and influence is far, far bigger than mine. But we do what we can. I write what I can. I talk when I can. I don't step back from the challenging or difficult conversations that sometimes people want to have. And, I say as loud as I can, there's young Black people are suffering out here, and we have to do something. We have to do something. If we cannot see now that we're in a state of crisis, and I'm talking about young Black lives, there are other issues that relate to young people in general, but that has been my specific focus. We are at a crisis point, and we've been at that crisis point for a long time, and we don't want to lose anybody else. I don't want to see any more young people go to a funeral. I don't want to see any more teenagers bury their friends. I don't want to see that. we do what we can. We do what we can.
Joy, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for the book. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of people to read that book, man. You know, super interesting to me, insightful, educational. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and good to meet and good to speak, man.
T-shirt, weather in the Manor.
Yes, yes.
Here's a coincidence. I lived on Manor Road, you know.
You lived on Manor Road, what?
I lived on Manor Road. So when you're talking about, and I'm thinking 69 Manor Road. I from there. And yeah, I did.
Oh, wow.
I did. So even that little bit of film, I'm thinking, that's the corner of Corporation Street. I know where he's going. The world is small.
Oh, wow, yeah. That was Manor Road. That was the yard. I had a mate that lived on Corporation Street, then Napier Road. That's where I had family there as well. But
those are the spots. But yeah, thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Nice one. Well, we'll speak again and meet one day, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully in real life.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you later, Joe. Bye bye.